Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of series 2 of my podcast, Don't Rush Me, by me, Rashmi. In the first series, we had about 6 episodes. We spoke about different stages of life where you can't really rush about. When you rush through those stages of life, you miss the lessons that life really wants to show you or the opportunities that it presents to you. The idea about life is to live it and to not rest in peace after your life is over. And that is why it is very important to not rush through the different stages and ages of your life. Which made me think, what is that I would like to speak in series 2? And that's when I thought of an element which is actually a part of my life and not just a profession: public relations. And that is what series 2 is all about. And throughout PR, and I've learned this over 20 plus years of my career, you cannot rush. You have to learn the basics. You have to do the grind. And you have to learn every skill possible to be really good in this profession. And this is especially true, this element of not rushing around when you face a crisis in your professional work. Crisis communication is all about thinking on your feet, thinking through it, not rushing around. Speed definitely is of importance, but not at the cost of clarity. And that's why, when faced with a crisis communication, you have to stop, you have to pause, and you have to think and figure out how you want to respond to that crisis. Which brings us to the basic question: what is a crisis? A crisis is anything that interferes in your normal flow of work. It interrupts your workflow. It is a situation where you no longer have control, where everything that you're doing is being looked into by a microscope. In these kind of crisis situation, it is very important what you do to address it. But what also becomes really important is communications. That's why the public relations team, the communications team, really comes into action in a big way when there is a crisis. And when you're looking at this crisis, you start thinking, how is that you want to communicate? That will really depend on the nature of the crisis. There are two types of crisis. One, that you know is going to happen. Second, that just hits you out of the blue. Let's talk about the first one. When you know that a crisis is going to happen, you can actually prepare your communication. Take, for example, Jamie Oliver. When they were shutting down their kitchens, their restaurants, they knew that this is going to lead into a crisis. People are going to lose their jobs. And people, when they lose their jobs, will protest because they have given their time and energy to build your brand. At this time, your crisis communication should be one of empathy, where you go out and you talk with empathy. You're very clear that this is not a decision that you've casually taken. You've seen how you can really help the business, hasn't worked out, and this is the only solution. And when you've come to this place, you've really figured out what is a good severance package for them. You've also figured out if you can give them a recommendation so they get a job somewhere else. Or you help them set up something of their own. Either ways, you figure out how you're going to communicate. The importance here would be empathy. You'll have to come from a place saying that I do understand that this decision will have this repercussion, and hence I have this plan in place. And I thank you for everything that you have done. You come from a place of really understanding that situation and always speak with honesty with who you are really as a person, as an organization. But what do you do when a communication just hits you out of the blue? You have no idea how to figure things out. It's just come there. What do you really do? For example, the current TCS crisis which are happening, from sexual incidents which are being reported to religious conversions. For a listed company, this is a nightmare. What do they really do? This is not what the Tata Group stands by. They are a group which is liberal. They are a group which is all inclusive. They are a group that has real good posh policies. They are a group that believes in leading the Indian industries. How does one really deal with this? In this case, of course, you cannot have any empathy. You cannot say, yes, yes, I know how it is to have been through this because I have been through this, or I understand. You don't. In this case, what you have to do is go out with facts. Do not go out and say, oh, I didn't know about this. Let me just get back to you. We will definitely do everything and we'll ensure everything is okay. These are generally very generalistic statements which give no confidence to people, especially when you're a listed company. You have to be mindful of these things. So, what you have to do is go out, find out what the facts are, go back and explain it to all your stakeholders through media, through internal communications, through any other format that you would like, what the situation is and what are you doing to ensure that it does not happen ever again. Rectify, yes, but it should never happen again. That is something you will have to go out and do. But that is where your communications team will come into play and they will guide you properly on what to speak, where to speak, and you have to be mindful to speak. People say that, PR people get all doctored stuff out. We don't. We don't get doctored stuff out. What we really get out is communication that is applicable for all stakeholders. We're not going there for a joyride. We are here in the serious business of communication. So we are giving it that time, that respect, that value it deserves. So, in both cases, whether you know about the crisis is coming or whether the crisis hits you suddenly, you cannot rush through communications. You have to ensure that, of course, I have to respond. I have to respond speedily enough, but that has to be followed with clarity, with consistency, and with clear facts on the table. I, in fact, remember once when I was in Bharti Airtel, our network was down for about a couple of days. And I actually stayed in the office because it was really important for those 2, 3 days. I just didn't go home. I was in the office because the entire team was working. There were people in the back end who were working. There were technical people who were working. There were marketing people who were working. There were sales people who were working. Because at that time, people were just getting used to the mobile handset. They were getting used to having network uninterrupted. And now suddenly you told them 2 days, it really wouldn't be there. You couldn't really go out and say that, hey, you know what, you never had network before this. So just be grateful that you have it now. And it's only 2 days, so it's okay. Your landlines are still working, your PCOs are still working, use that. And this is a new thing, so just give us time. No, you cannot say that because you went to the market saying that you are going to offer unbeatable network to the people. You just have to go and say sorry. And that is exactly what we did. We went out, we said we're sorry, that we're working on this, and we're going to ensure it never happens again. And we didn't do this after 2 days or 3 days. We did it on the first day. We just went out in all forms of communication and said, yes, it is down. These are the steps that we had taken to ensure that it doesn't go down, but those steps haven't worked. We're rectifying it, and we're ensuring this doesn't happen ever again. Whether it is from natural causes or unnatural causes, people don't really care about it. What is inconveniencing them? Can you solve that? And we did that. So that is something that every communication person has to understand, that when you're going out and communicating, you're not communicating just because you're in the communications profession, you like communicating. You are representing a company. You're representing a large group of people who are working to ensure to mitigate that crisis, to ensure that the crisis does not happen again, ever. So you have to be mindful that you're part of that bigger wheel. And so you have to communicate carefully, thoughtfully, not rushing around, and being clear of what you're communicating, especially more so if you're a listed company. So then what do you, as a communications profession, do to ensure that your entire team, like I said, you're part of a giant wheel. Now, how do you ensure that that giant wheel is prepared for a crisis? What you can do is have a crisis communication workshop. Have somebody who's senior enough in the field of public relations and communications come and take that for your leadership. Take that for people who are at the plant level. Take it for people who at different stages would have access to media or who are very active on social media. Organize that training for those people. Have a word with those people. Make them understand what are the chains. When a crisis happens, who do you talk to first? How do you get that statement? What should you say? What should you not say? And are you even the right person to say anything? So all this is something that you can do through your crisis communication workshop. And then gradually over time, build up something that is called as a crisis communication manual. Anybody across the organization who is authorized to speak to media or to speak on social media must have access to that crisis communication manual. They should know what to say, when to say, who to reach out to figure what to say, how to go about it. These two aspects of a crisis communication workshop and a crisis communication manual is really important. It's not because you've already had many crises, so you need to be ready, or you may never have any crisis. Why should I be ready? You should always be ready because you never know. Like I said in the beginning, certain crises you can preempt, sudden could just hit you out of nowhere. And that's when you need to be completely ready for it. And in this situation, you cannot rush around. You have to understand what are the protocols, what are the things that you need to speak, what are the things that will have impact for the business. Are you being honest, truthful to your business, to your stakeholders, and are you going out and speaking the absolute truth? And for doing this, you need to wait, understand what's happening, prepare the right statements, have the right people speak, reach out to the right media, speak through the right social media channels, and have that impact, which will enable that you that you get past that crisis and move on to really go on to building the business. So this is all about crisis communication. And if you have any questions on this, as always, please DM me. In our next episode, which will be episode 6 of series 2, we will speak about the future of PR. And with that, we will close series 2. So please, if you enjoyed listening into this episode, please do like, comment, subscribe, and share. And for any questions that you may have, feel free to DM me. And as always, remember that don't rush me, because when you rush, especially in a crisis situation, you are actually going towards making that crisis worse than it is. So be mindful and take your steps carefully and be a really consummate communications professional who it's not about safeguarding the imagery of the company. It is really about putting the right picture in front of the stakeholders. I wish each one of you who are entering the field of communications the very best. And I look forward to this industry really growing and playing a much larger role as we grow as an economy in India and as more companies come out in India and hopefully lesser crisis. I'll see you in my next episode. Take care and have a lovely day.